An interesting piece of street art on the wall of Bagnoli, the ex-steelworks Ilva of Bagnoli. It says, Carlo vive, Carlo is alive. Well, unfortunately, when you read something like that in Italian, it means Carlo is actually dead. Reference is to Carlo Giuliani, who was a young boy around 20 years old, who was killed by the police in Genova 2001, Italy, when young people protested against the G7 being held in Genova. And I was there, lots of us were there, and it is true, in our hearts, Carlo is still alive. Another piece on the walls of Bagnoli. This piece of street art is definitely inspired by Jacovitti, the Italian comic artist. Jacovitti used to draw all these characters that actually look very funny and very ironic. Anyway, in the middle of the piece you see Pinocchio, the famous wooden puppet who used to tell lies and his nose got longer, and two menacing Austrian looking or carabinieri like guards, a bird laughing at the scene, Pinocchio is being told off, obviously for having done a graffiti under a tree. And then you got another two characters, the cat and the fox, two crafty looking characters who used to taunt Pinocchio and get him into all sorts of trouble. And on the far end of the graffiti, the talking grasshopper, who was a good kind of character, and Geppetto, the carpenter who made Pinocchio and who wanted a son so badly that a fairy came along and gave life to Pinocchio. Just under the tree there's a mouse and one little touch, which was a Jacovitti signature, a piece of salami. On the background you can see what is left of one of the chimneys of the steelworks factory. A quick shaky view of what's left of the steelworks here in Bagnoli, just to give you a little bit of context. This is actually quite a nice place. This hill here is the hill of Posillipo, which is a residential area on the other side, and just across there is the island of Nisida. So a beautiful place ruined by the steelworks that slowly is being reclaimed is where you saw the last graffiti. Countless photographers have taken picture of the steelworks, the places where the steel was made. But if you want a little bit of reference and you want to actually see the steelworks working, you should have a look at an Italian cult movie called Mi Manda Piccone. Other street art downtown Naples. Must fu Fir e Fir fanno must. See it yourself at Salita Pontecorvo by the ex-Roxy Cinema. Hello everyone, hello Travel Inspired community. We're in Naples, just outside one of the ancient gates of a city called Portalba, and I'm going to be showing you what used to be one of the most popular bookshops in Naples, Guida at Portalba, but we're going to be focusing on a piece of street art. Steel Revolution and Steel Regime is a piece made by a couple of friends of mine. One friend who came up with the idea of this pun, Steel Regime, Steel Revolution, is called Il Che, because he looks a little bit like Che Guevara. The other friend, I don't really want to say his name, or maybe let's just say he's Edward. Anyway, they did this series of graffiti focused on Egypt. You know that some years ago there was the so-called Arab Spring, a series of revolutions that crossed and spanned the whole of North Africa. So this piece is focused on Egypt and on the way the people of Egypt were seeking the truth in the revolution. But obviously the truth was, la verità è stata insabbiata, we would say in Italian. The truth was choked with sand, and sand is a metaphor of the desert. So the truth was surrounded by a whole desert of falsehood. And the symbol of this piece is Giulio Regeni. Giulio Regeni was a young Italian researcher who went from the UK to Egypt, to Cairo, and he died in rather mysterious circumstances. We suspect killed by the Egyptian Secret Service, with the all truth drowned. So I'm choosing this dark format because I don't want to be identified or held liable for what I say. Anyway, you can see next to the photograph of Giulio framed in glass and sand, there are two military, or rather a soldier and a sailor. Those two should be two Italian soldiers who killed two Indian fishermen because they claimed they were pirates, or they believed them to be pirates, attacking an Italian commercial ship they were escorting, and were consequently held captive in New Delhi for 2 or 3 years by Indian authorities. When I say held captive, I mean they were under trial, and they were simply forced to live in the Italian embassy, but they were actually allowed to move around New Delhi city. So the suggestion made by the piece of street art seems to be that the two Italian soldiers obtained impunity in exchange for silence over Giulio Regeni's death. So the whole piece is just outside Guida Portalba, which was a symbol of knowledge for the city, and that went bankrupt. So Eddie and Che, we love your piece, and everyone watching the video, if you walk through Naples streets from Piazza Dante to Portalba and Piazza Bellini, where loads of young people hang out, then have a look at it. So from Bagnoli to downtown Naples is going to be a day to night transition, and I'm going to wish you all good night.